Hi, everybody. We are at the top of the hour, so I will kick things off. My name is Madeline Ackery, and I'm the Energy Storage Manager at Soligent. We are very excited to have Sonnen here with us today because we're doing a unique webinar style, one that we haven't done before that I'm very eager to have you guys all see. We are going to be doing a live demo of the new sonnenCore inverter and battery product from Sonnen. Today, we will have Greg Smith, who's the technical trainer with Sonnen, going through a unit in his house, and Brian Wolfson is a channel specialist on the West Coast, and he will be kicking things off and kind of helping with the webinar in the chat box and anything of that nature. There won't be a slide deck that we're sending because this is really more of a live demonstration rather than a PowerPoint-based webinar, but the recording will be available for future viewing on YouTube. So without further ado, go ahead, Brian.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Madeline, for the introduction. My name is Brian Wolfson. I'm a channel specialist here for Sonnen, covering West Coast, primarily California. And I'm excited to talk to you all today about the sonnenCore, but primarily to segue into the live demo, which my colleague Greg Smith will get into in a moment here. So as Madeline alluded to, the agenda today is we're going to be focusing on that live demo. But before we get there, I did want to do just a very quick overview of the product to go over some of the numbers and specs with you all. And as Madeline mentioned again, throughout the presentation while Greg is talking, I will be managing the chat box and answering any questions that you have. So if anything comes up, feel free to ask there, and I'll do my best to answer. If it's something that perhaps Greg should answer, or it's a really good question that I think would benefit from an extended answer, I'll save those towards the end, and Greg can address those live. And then lastly, we will also have time in the end in case you want to ask the question directly to Greg. We can also do that as well. All right, so to get started, with regards to the sonnenCore, as you can see here on the picture on the right, the sonnenCore is the unit that's on the right. So on the left side, we have our Eco, and right off the bat from the picture, you can tell that it's a smaller unit, it's sleeker, and so this is going to be very beneficial with regards to when you do decide to install the unit. It has to be installed indoors, but it's going to give you greater flexibility on locations that you can add it, because we're not dealing with such a large and bulky unit as was our typical units in the past. So overall, the main benefit of the sonnenCore is that it's a high quality, all-in-one, 100% Sonnen design system. And what I mean by this is that every single component in the sonnenCore was engineered and designed by Sonnen for the sonnenCore in particular. So I don't know how familiar you all are with some of our previous products, such as the Eco or the EcoLinks, but in those products, we use some components from other manufacturers. For example, the inverters in some of those products were made from Outback. But with the sonnenCore, it's different. We've made everything ourselves. We have our brand new Sonnen inverter. Our battery modules were designed by us. Our BMS is, of course, proprietary to us. And so this is going to ensure that we have a system where Sonnen has full control over all the components and can make changes to make sure that it is optimized and performs the best as possible. Next up is the warranty. So the sonnenCore has a 10-year, 10,000 cycle warranty with a guaranteed energy throughput of 58 megawatt hours. And a lot of this is due to the lithium iron phosphate cell chemistry that we use in this battery and in all of our batteries, which is the safest, longest lasting, and most eco-friendly solution out there. In terms of its applications, the sonnenCore can handle battery backup, solar self-consumption, and time of use. But I do want to point out here, and this is something that I'm sure Greg is going to address in the live demo, that the sonnenCore only has an integrated 35 amp ATS, which means that you are forced to use this unit with a sub panel. You cannot do a whole home backup. And we'll get into this and a couple of other questions and considerations of how to size the unit, what to place into that sub panel when we go over to the live demo. In terms of the design, as you can see, it has a smaller form factor with less clearance requirements, and it also has a simplified installation. So no component in this battery weighs over 90 pounds, and it has a very modular installation. There's only about 4 or 5 pieces in total, I believe, and they all come in components. So installing it is very simple. If any servicing needs to be done, that's also very simple. You just pop a part out and then put a new one back in. Regarding the temperature, the sonnenCore has a broader threshold with 14 to 122 degrees Fahrenheit, which should give you all more flexibility in garage installations. And if you are in a location that exceeds these limits, the unit will still work. It'll just slightly derate itself to protect the internal components. So just something to keep in mind. And lastly, it's very quiet. This unit is passively cooled, which means there are no fans. So the noise rating on it is less than 25 decibels, which I was looking at the chart the other day, and it's about the sound of a soft whisper. So if ultimately any homeowner does want to install this inside the home, they're likely not going to be bothered by it. Last but not least, the pricing. The sonnenCore has a homeowner MSRP of $9,500. And again, this is all in one, everything included. So it includes the inverter, the batteries, the BMS, all the wiring inside, the cover. There are no external components, no external gateways, no external switches. So it should be a very attractive offering for homeowners. And really it's our entry into the mass market, allowing homeowners of every home, every budget to have energy storage. And lastly, this product will begin shipping at the end of the month. So it will be available from Soligent pretty soon. If you're looking for a quote or more questions on availability and shipping, feel free to reach out to your account manager. Perfect. Without further ado, I'd like to move on to the live demo because I know this is what most of you are on here today for. So I see Greg has turned on his camera. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and switch it over to Greg. Take it away, Greg.
Awesome, thank you so much. Now, I think you should, Madeline, help me out here, but I think they should be able to click on my video feed up on the top and it should expand it into a full screen, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I have you in gallery mode. No, not gallery mode, speaker mode. So you are front and center.
Oh man, there I am. Woo, I need to shave. All right. Well, hey, thank you everybody for joining in. And as Madeline said, this is a pretty auspicious occasion. Not only is this Soligent's first live demo, this is a live demo of a solar and storage system that is running my house completely on battery power. Yeah, I turned off the grid about an hour ago, and here's my sonnenCore on the port side of my garage. I don't know if you can see that ring, but that ring is green. And that means the unit is running in backup mode. How about that, huh? Making history. And I get so stoked when I talk about these things. And the best way to really get to know them, if you're in sales or if you're a company that's selling batteries, is to put one in your home. I mean, that's the best way to really get to know these things. But we're going to go over mainly the mechanical part of it, right? Like how it would sit in the home, how it would integrate into the electrical distribution in the house. And by request, I'm going to talk a lot about sizing these things. In my experience in the almost 13 years I've been doing this, I find that people struggle with battery sizing. And I'm going to go over that. I'm also going to bring up the portal page and show you what this thing is doing in this off-grid scenario. So this is my garage. It's a real garage. I mean, you can see all my stuff here. It took me like a day and a half to make it presentable, but we'll get through it. And it's 44 degrees here outside Sacramento, so it's a little chilly in my garage. So I don't normally have all this stuff on, yeah. But let's take a look at, and I'd always like to go from left to right, top to bottom. That's just the ex-Navy submariner in me. But let me show you how this thing is set in. And I think this is pretty representative of how it would be installed in your home, or in anybody else's home, So let's start here. We'll try not to put my back to the camera. I know that's faux pas, but can't help it sometimes. This pass-through box right here, it's pretty big, pretty beefy, about as wide as my hand. This is a pass-through box, and on the other side of that component is my main panel, And we just punched a hole in the back. We come in here, and I migrated all of the circuits in my home into my sub panel. So I know Brian said that you have to use the sub panel, not really recommending it for whole home backup. I wholeheartedly agree with that because most people don't know how to manage their consumption. I've had a lot of people drain batteries down very quickly and wonder why, their investment, this, $20,000, $25,000 investment, with everything isn't working. And it's not because the battery system didn't do what it was supposed to do. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. So I have all of these circuits that I migrated from the main up over here in this gutter. I think you can see it on the bottom. And then I go down through this sub panel here, which we affectionately refer to as a protected load panel, a backup panel, essential load panel, never a critical load panel. This is a big rant of mine. You guys that know me from my SMA days, I go off on this. This is not a critical load panel. And I know that's such a pervasive term that we use in our industry, just like people that call modules panels, right? Oh, we got 15 panels up there. Those are not panels, they're modules, right? Modules make electricity, panels heat water. I know I'm, get off my stump on that, but this is really important. Okay, essential load, backup, whatever you want to call them, has a much different connotation than when you call this thing a critical load panel. The code has some very specific litany for that. Like it's for emergency egress lighting, life support systems, things like that. Okay, most battery systems are not fast enough to qualify to feed a critical load. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So I go through my backup panel here into another pass-through box, and then I go outside into my disconnects, right? So all that balance of system stuff is on the other side of this wall, And we've got California and their goofy disconnect requirement. It's a mess out there. But I come back in through that box and then back up into here. So I'm feeding the top of this thing with exclusive battery power. So we come in from the grid and I go directly into here. So I didn't point that out, but I go from here up and over into here into a specific grid terminal. So we start with the utility, the meter, my main, and a 35 amp breaker that feeds this. Then we have a microgrid terminal where you go out and then you go over, and that feeds directly into this backup panel, right? So in, out, right, left. I finally got my Sunny Boy. I've been waiting almost 13 years for that, and I finally got one on my wall. It's on the other side, like right behind this thing over here. It's a 5,000 watt TL, the latest and greatest. That unit, oh, come on, there we go. My solar inverter feeds this breaker right here on the bottom, as per code, right there. Got my little red sticker right over here saying as much. But these breakers right here feed everything, every single circuit in my home, except for my 3-ton air conditioner and my electric dryer. Those two breakers, 30 and 35 amp respectively, are on the main still. And a lot of people want to put air conditioners on this panel, and I understand why. I mean, here in Sacramento, I think it got up to 113 last summer. I mean, that's ridiculous. And you know, we get our triple digit days, you know, about 3 or 4 weeks of them, right? I tell you, my 3-ton air conditioner pulls 3,500 amps. Oh, wow, I wish. 3,500 watts, okay? That 3,500 watt load runs for about 6 to 8 hours. And that's typical for most air conditioners, right? Most air conditioners run 6 to 8 hours. So let's go on the low end. 3,500 times 6 is 21,000 watts, 21 kilowatts. Yeah. 21 kilowatt hours, 21 kilowatt hours. Yeah. That's a 10 kilowatt hour unit. So we're looking at about a 3-hour runtime that unit would be able to run. But that assumes that nothing else in the house is on, right? And I have anywhere between an 800 to 1,000 watt base load. So now we're looking at about 2.5 hours. And das Batterie ist kaputt. Yeah, so that's a hard lesson for people to learn. And that's the biggest part of this whole thing is managing those expectations. Yeah, but this is a pretty simple setup. They did this in one day. Like Brian was saying, it's a very easy install. In fact, I replaced this with our Eco 20, and boy, do I miss that 20 kilowatt hours of capacity. Right? That was just a beast. But now I'm having to manage my consumption a lot more with this thing because it's 10 kilowatt hours. This is good for most things. I'm using it in a time of use mode. So Brian mentioned we have 3 modes. Just like all storage systems, you have a pure backup mode, time of use, and then self-consumption, or some people call it self-supply. Yeah, that's the name of the game in Germany and in Europe. They always are on self-consumption mode, and very few of our units, or in fact, I don't think any anymore, in Germany have a backup mode, right? They're like, oh, if I would have the backup mode when the grid is so reliable, right? It's like, wow, okay, you need to come here to the United States a little more often. So the self-consumption mode is pretty popular if you are trying to get the ITC, right? The tax credit, because part of that stipulation is that you have to charge your system, overwhelming majority, with solar. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think it's 100%. For commercial, they kind of drop it down a little bit. And so you can't use the grid to charge your battery. So most of the time it's a self-consumption, or they put it, no, that's the only way you can do it. So one little thing that you have to remember. So it's a pretty bad day out there right now. Like I've got the garage door closed. It's been raining off and on. And I'll show you here in a second when I go to the portal. I am not sure I'm going to get my batteries charged up before 5 p.m., which is my window, right? So, yeah, there's a lot of give and take. There's a lot of tug and pull here with these things that people may or may not be aware of. Yeah. So, like I said, the mechanical installation is really easy. So the heaviest part of this thing is the battery. We have 2 batteries, and they both weigh 90 pounds each, and each one is a 5 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate battery. So there's 2 shelves in here. I could probably pop this off. It would be kind of loud. I'll save time at the end if you really want to look in there. But we've got 2 battery shelves, and these batteries go on there. Our battery inverter rests right behind here, and that's got all the inputs, including the Ethernet. I don't know if you can see it, but this little wire goes down right here in the back. That's my Ethernet. Right? So it comes off of my little Wi-Fi extender over here, right next to my sprinkler system, because I was not going to run Ethernet from all the way on the other end of my house in here, right? That just wasn't going to happen. So, yeah, typically all storage systems need some type of connection to the internet, right? You don't need it to commission. You could totally not even have it to commission, but you do need a network to do that. And we cover all that in our training. So to install these things, or if you're going to be designing them, you need to be certified. So basically, if you're going to call our service line, you need to be certified. So I developed this course back in 2019 and launched it in the fall of 2019. And then, COVID hit, everything came to a halt. I went from, 40% travel to 0. And thank goodness we had that course all ready to go. And so it's about a 3 or 4 hour course. This is included. And when you get done, you're certified, you get a little certificate, and you're good to go. And we just do that because people don't know what they're doing, right? And I know, I'm not trying, if there's any off-grid guys, or if you've been doing batteries for a long time, like, well, I've been doing battery for 30 years. Yeah, those are the guys that usually mess this up. Yeah, lead acid and lithium kind of, they have a divergence. Yeah, and two totally different mentalities, right? We promote grid-tied systems with our unit, even though, if you did an off-grid, you just stick it in backup mode and you would just think the grid is down all the time. But most people cannot adjust their lifestyle to live off-grid. They just can't. Even with solar and batteries, when the grid goes down, they don't know how to adjust their lifestyle, right? They think they have this infinite power source that they can just turn everything on. And we got several calls last year, or over the years, when the California fires hit, and you got people that are without power for 3, 4, 5, 14 days without power, and they're draining their batteries down. And this is I'm not exaggerating. I had a guy call me early in the morning because one of our batteries shut itself off to protect itself. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what happened? Well, what happened was that the homeowner decided they would have a hot tub party, and they fired that thing up and they drained that battery down in about 2 hours. That's it. So now you got no power, and come to find out that outage lasted almost a week. Like, I don't, so anyway, I got tons of those stories. So as far as the mechanical the mechanical part of this, it's really easy. There's a frame behind here. You put the shelves on, you mount the frame. Typically, you're going to use a piece of unistrut that goes behind here, about right here, and about right here. And bolt the frame on, and then you're going to put the batteries in there. You're going to wire them up. You're going to bring the AC in from the main panel, and from your protected load panel, you're going to bring line 1, line 2, neutral, equipment ground separately into our unit. And then you're going to bring in Ethernet, and that's it. And when you're all done with that, then it's time to commission. And we have this, I think it's 12 or 13 step commissioning assistant, which I call a wizard, that is going to just let you blaze through that, and then you're up and running. So it's quite possible. Matter of fact, a lot of our installers do, after the second or third install, when they get a good rhythm, they're able to install this in one day, and that includes migrating the circuits. Not the solar. Like, if they're doing solar, then that's different, but they can do this and the circuits in one day. And like most things, it takes you a couple times, or you gotta to get used to it. But this is significantly faster than the Eco and the Eco Links line. Like, this blew me away how easy it was. Okay, so let's talk about sizing. And I find that is a serious deficiency in our industry. It just is, and some of it is our own fault, right, as ESS manufacturers, right? And I know that there's a lot of sizing tools available out there, and there's a lot of bad ones. I'm really reluctant to really use a sizing tool that only asks for the square footage of your house or your monthly utility bill. Like, I don't see how that can be effective. Well, and I know they're not effective, because I talk to other people, and those kinds of tools, if that's all you're relying on, you're going to get a service call. I'm just telling you right now. And it's a fast process, but to me, it's kind of lazy because how, like, first of all, square footage doesn't tell you nothing about energy consumption. Okay. I've seen a 4,000 square foot house be more energy efficient than a 1,400 square foot house in Texas. True story. So that's got nothing to do with anything. Monthly utility bill, that takes way too many assumptions, right? And what usually happens is you end up you more than likely sell a system that's way oversized than what they need. It varies, but in my opinion, you have to do your due diligence. You have to find out the load profile. And there's several different ways to do this, and nobody wants to do it. The salespeople complain about it because it slows them down and they want to use something quick and move on to the next one. But I'm telling you, that mindset is going to end up in a service call. And I guess this is about as good as time as any for this, but I took my 0% travel time last year and put it to good use. I wrote an industry book. It's about lithium-ion storage in grid-tied systems, and it goes over all of this stuff. I spend a lot of time on managing customer expectations. I spend a lot of time using real examples and real system sizing tools to show you how to do it. And I don't even use a sonnen tool because I'm trying to be unbiased and fair and show what else is out there, right? It's not a book about sonnen. I try to be very clear about that. And I wrote this because there's a need for it, right? Like people just, they mess this part up all the time. And anytime that happens, right? Anytime that these guys can point a finger at us and say, see, I told you that stuff doesn't work. It's just bad for everybody. I mean, we have a really good example, a timely example of that in Texas, right? Look at all these freaking people that are pointing at us and saying, yeah, your stuff doesn't work. Like they just want to find something wrong with this, right? This does work. You just have to be smart about it. Yeah. And so anyway, oh yeah. So you'll never remember the email address, but the website is snarkysolarguy.com. That's it. Whoa, there we go. Sorry, I got a garage door opener that works on movement. So if I stand still too long, the lights go out. Sorry, my stomach just like came out almost. So anyway, snarkysolarguy.com. Sign up for the book. You'll get advance notice. And like I said, it's not an advertisement. It's there to help you, right? It's there to help you. So if you go on the website, I'd lay out explicitly who this book is for, what it's going to do, and how you're going to be able to make a lot of money the right way in this industry. All right, so yeah, promo done, okay? So getting back to this, let's look at some numbers, right? Let's look at some typical numbers. I have a freezer on the other side of my camera. I know I keep pointing around, you guys don't know what's here. That's my freezer, right? And I've got a lot of stuff in there that is important to me. I got one full shelf full of stuff that I intend on barbecuing. So I wrote a book, and then I got real good at smoking brisket and everything else, man. Like I freaking love it. It's like my release. So I got brisket is expensive here in California, and I got a whole shelf full of that stuff. So this is important to me, right? You want to talk about ROI versus value? Well, it's, storage and solar, if you can't get it to 5 to 7 years, it ain't worth it. Okay, that is a stupid premise. If that is all you're going for, then you probably shouldn't. Well, I won't say that. There's a difference between value and ROI. I mean, look at all the stuff that we buy that doesn't have an ROI, right? We got cars, $200 jeans, a $5,000 AV rack. I mean, what's your hobby, right? We buy these things because they're just cool and it gives us joy. Why does this have to fall into a category of having a 5 to 7 year ROI? Like we just been like brainwashed into thinking that, right? So anyway, my freezer takes about 1.5 kilowatt hours a day, 24 hours. That's how much it consumes. A refrigerator is 1.5 to 2, right? So we'll just keep the numbers easy and say it's 3 kilowatt hours for 24 hours. So that is a significant chunk of one of those 5 kilowatt hour battery modules we have in here. Yeah, 3 kilowatt hours taking up part of a 5 kilowatt hour module. So I got 7 left. My computer desk, my work area, is 3 kilowatt hours a day. So now we bump up, and now we're at 60%, and all we're doing is keeping my beer cold, my meat froze, and me still being able to work. So this is an eye-opener for a lot of people. Matter of fact, I had one of my salespeople, I'm getting ready to put a new course online, and she's looking at a sheet that I had, an exercise, and she says, wow, those numbers seem really high, like really, 1.2 kilowatt hours for lights. I'm like, dude, yeah, it depends on the lights, right? It depends on so many things. So you really have to do your due diligence with these sizing, right? And because because we promote protected load, backup panel, essential load panels, whatever you want to call it, I think it's a much better experience because now you can control the circuits that these things are on, but you still have to talk to the homeowner about what they want to run. And unless you're going to meter out each individual circuit, which I highly recommend, you're kind of eyeballing it for a system size, right? Now, all these times that I give you are representative, but that doesn't include solar, right? So that would be like having a really bad day for solar and you're strictly running on battery power, right? So when you add solar in, well, now it kind of changes things. And that's something that needs to be sized for. It needs to be, accounted for. And something else that needs to be accounted for, which I find people fall a lot on their faces with, is a secondary source, a secondary AC source, in case you don't have a lot of solar. And we saw this in Northern California. Well, we're seeing this, but this is about the time of year when all that comes up, right? In the wintertime, particularly. You get an outage and the unit kicks on, but you've got this much snow on the modules, right? That you're not going to get any production. Or you've got soot from the California fires and the dust and all that garbage on the modules. And so that weakens your harvest. And so then the system goes into extremis if you're not paying attention. So our utility grid operators have 3, sometimes even 4 backups to the backups so that they can keep power on in our neighborhoods, right? That's how ridiculous they get with maintaining power. So why would you, as a battery and solar owner, only rely on solar, which is heavily influenced by the weather, as your only charging source for your batteries? I don't get it. You're asking for it. So I always, if you're in an area that is really prone to outages during bad weather, you might want to get a generator. And you don't have to get like a big honking whisper watt 40 kilowatt generator. That's overkill. But typically something small, like about a 10K generator, is going to be good enough. It'll get the battery charged, it'll give you a little power, and then you don't have a system that shuts down on you, right? And I saw this same thing when I was at SMA. My beloved Sunny Island battery inverter suffered the same thing. And it wasn't because it was not working right. It was working exactly how it was supposed to. Yeah. So how long have I been going? 48 minutes or so? Oh no, that's how long I've been on. How much time do I have left?
Greg, it's currently 10:35-ish. Do you think you could pop open the cover on the unit and show the folks here watching the internal components?
Oh man, heck yeah, let's do it. It's going to get kind of loud here for a second while I pull this thing off. There we go. Look at that pretty green LED, huh? Check that out here. Let me adjust the camera a little bit. There we go. You can see it sitting on the ground right there. Right there. So just give you like a little knobology. These are the batteries, 5 kilowatt hours. This is our inverter. And just like Brian was saying, this is all sonnen, right? We did all of this. So we're not, you know, this is a huge achievement for us here in the US. Like that's a pretty cool breakthrough for us, I think. Right here, that is my Ethernet cable coming from my extender. I'm just kind of giving you like general areas, right? Because I don't want to like move the camera up here because it'll make your car sick. So here is the microgrid terminal right here. So I've got line 1, line 2, neutral, equipment, ground, coming from that panel up, over, and right in here. This one here, same 4 wires, go up, over, and to the main to connect to that 35 amp breaker. So in, out, very easy. I can already anticipate some of the questions. These are number 8 right here, number 8. The batteries over here, we do have a battery management system. Every lithium ion battery has it. The battery management system is like the charge controller and a good old lead acid system. And the BMS is the kernel secret formula, right? This BMS has been revised and developed. You know, Sonnen just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. We've been around doing this type of intelligent energy storage longer than anything. So we have this down. And people, well, how can you give 10-year, 10,000 cycle warranty? That don't make no sense. Well, it does, because we know what we're doing. We've been around. That's how come we can give those awesome warranties, because we know how the batteries behave. We know what they do. So we have to connect the batteries in a little daisy chain, starting here, going down, and then we just make a loop-de-loop. And so now our BMS can tell the batteries, which also have a BMS board inside them, can tell all the different cells, all these little bitty cells that are connected in series and parallel inside these batteries. We could tell them what to do. And this is not just Sonnen, this is everybody, right? Any lithium ion storage system uses the same technology. It's freaking amazing, man. We have come so far, so quickly, yeah? And then the last thing you do is connect the power cables from here to the batteries, 2 cables, click, 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 click. And now we are able to charge and discharge from the batteries. Pretty cool. And we are an AC coupled system, which means solar is not directly connected to our unit. You do not connect a PV array to this unit. We're AC coupled. So the solar over here feeds those loads first. And then if there's any excess solar, it goes up and over into the microgrid terminal. And the system will say, oh, sweet, I got some excess solar. Let me charge the batteries. But remember, AC coupled systems only get what is left over. So if I have a lot of stuff on, if I have 5,000 watts of load and only 2,000 watts of excess solar, then I'm not charging the battery. That's got to come from the grid if the grid is up, and it's not right now. So down goes your state of charge. Now, probably thinking, well, how low can you go? It's a 100% depth of discharge, which when you hear that just means you can use all the battery capacity and you're not going to hurt anything, right? It's completely different than our lead acid cousins, where you typically only want to go down about halfway. It's not like that for lithium. Man, dump it down, go. They don't care. They're pretty tough. Yeah. So we do have a setting though. If you don't want to go all the way down, because if you go all the way down, then if the power went out at that moment, you'd kind of be screwed, right? So we want to leave a little bit of reserve in there, and we call that a backup buffer. And so I have mine set to 10%. So at 10%, I stop discharging, and if the grid went down, I'd have a little bit of time to get me through. But you can set that whatever you want. Some people get really aggressive with it. They set it like 50% because they want half the battery to tide them over, right, till the sun comes up. So that's about it. Yeah, I got my my consumption CT right here. It's a clamp on. Woohoo! So you clamp it right there. That's for line 1. I got line 2. So now I know what's being pulled into my house. And then my CT, this is the CT meter right here. Just again, I'm looking in direction here. My CT meter wiring is right here. And that's actually what this is. I don't know if you can see it, but that goes here and it goes over here. And there's only one CT, right? So not only is it clamp on, but there's only one of them. And we just take one and double it. So using some cool math, we've eliminated the need to install 2 PV CTs, but it's right over here around my L1 conductor coming right off my breaker. Yeah, pretty cool. And that's it. That's it. I want to show you one more thing. So I'm going to share my screen. Oh, hang on. I got to put my eyes on. 20 years staring at sonar screens. And this should work. Oh, maybe because you have me set up for oh, really? Yeah,
Try it now, Greg. Never mind.
Yeah, it's being dumb. I know I've had this on here before. I'm so sorry. All of a sudden it doesn't like the Zoom security. Oh no. No. If I open up security for me to share my desktop, because for some reason it dropped the certificate for Zoom. So sorry.
And would you like me to potentially share my screen and show them around and you can talk through it?
Oh, yeah, man, perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. See, no matter how early you get on and no matter how much you prepare, there's always something, right? But yeah, let's do your screen. I'll kind of walk through it and then we'll take questions.
Let me share my screen here.
Blowing up. Cool. All
right. Can everyone see my screen? And I'm actually logged into Greg's system here. As you can see, Greg Smith, this is his address. You all can see my screen, right?
Looking good.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, yeah,
Greg, take it away.
I gave you access to that. Ooh, okay. Well, so we get to the dashboard, and it's a nice, easy read. If you look over on the right-hand side where it says PV system, it's showing I'm about 1,700 watts. So that's much better than the 200 I had at 8 o'clock this morning. If you hit next right there, Brian, it'll click to the next screen and you can see what my consumption is. So there you go, 1,600 watts of consumption. So not a whole lot going into the batteries. Go over to the left and go to live state. I think that'll be more interesting. There we go. Look at that. So I'm at 45% state of charge, the right bubble there, Brian. 45%. You can see I've got 1,600 watts of production, 1,600 watts of consumption, and that's going to fluctuate as my kids start turning things off and on. That doesn't leave a whole lot to go into my battery. Yeah, and yeah, now my consumption is up to 2K. So I can tell you right now, my daughter's in there, probably cooking a Pop-Tart or toasting a piece of, or toasting a bagel or something. I keep a pretty close eye on my house. But most homeowners won't. They will, that's not fair. Most of them will for about a month, and then they get tired of it, and that's it. So on the left side, go to analysis. Let's take a look there. So today, yeah, man, it's a pretty poopy day for production. That's the technical word for it. Not a whole lot going on. But you look, I can see like right there at 6 o'clock, Brian, go to that time mark right there. No, okay, maybe a little further right, that spike right there. Okay, now bring your cursor down.
Right there?
Yeah, now just bring your mouse, just pull it down to get rid of that thing. There we go. Okay. So that area in the morning is when my coffee pot comes on and the microwave just to heat something up. Like I know exactly what's going on. Those spikes in the middle of the night, that's my TV. I'm sorry, not my TV, my refrigerator. That spike all the way, the really big one all the way to the left, Brian, what's that?
That is 12:45 a.m. Yeah.
Yep. So, and that's at, so 1:45 this morning. Yep. So that's my son taking a break from his gaming to go down and cook something. Yeah. So I know all. So when I go down and say, hey, who ate all the pizza rolls? Oh, I don't know. I can say, yeah, I know who did it. Up at the top where it says choose date, let's go back a day. Let's see what yesterday looked like. There we go. So still not a very good day. And so the blue is my consumption. The yellow is my production. That solid line that you see going across, that is my state of charge. So I got it charged up last night in time for my high peak window that starts at 5 p.m. And then I just started discharging all night. So yeah, that's a pretty, right there, stop right there, where all those little spikes are. To the left, right there. To the left, the little bitty ones. Yeah, that's what a dishwasher looks like. So as my dishwasher puts the heating element on to maintain that temperature, that's what it looks like. Earlier in the day, in the later afternoon, you can see when we started cooking. There's other things out there that you can put on your panels, your AC panels, that will figure all this stuff out for you. Yeah, it's a really cool thing to do. And I mean, if you really want to get what the customer's consumption behavior looks like, you can get like an E-gauge or a sense or something like that. And during the sales process, say, hey, we kind of come up with a good system size, but we're going to meter your house for like 3 or 4 weeks just to see what really goes on. And then we'll come back, maybe you need a bigger system, maybe you need a smaller system. We'll just leave this cool monitoring system for you, just whatever, in case, unless you want to go in and remove it, but most people don't want a truck roll to do that. So there's tons of options, right? There's tons of options for these things. But, and lastly, go on the left menu there, go to sonnen battery. And it's just kind of and then go to overview. So yeah, there you go. So it kind of tells you what's
Greg,
going on.
I have one really quick question for you.
Yeah, bring it.
Can we go back, Brian, can we go back to analysis? Can you explain how the battery is charging? Like, it seems like you went from using the battery or having it depleted in the morning. Can we look at yesterday? And then it went back up to 100. Like, is this charging exclusively from the sun, or do you have instances where you're charging from the grid?
So both, right? And you have to be careful in your area, because if you charge from the grid, then you can't get the ITC. So I keep this one, there's a setting called grid charge, and I keep that off most of the time.
That's good to know. So that means that because grid charge is off, in this instance, we got this peak battery filling from the sun yesterday.
Yep.
Okay, great.
It's pretty cool. Like, there's a lot going on for solar and storage. And, you know, we have this thing in the sky. It's got a 4.5 billion year warranty. Like, let's use it. It's not hard. Yeah. Go back to that details underneath the battery. Just show one more thing. Yeah, underneath. There we go. And so, yeah. Oh, yeah, here. Go back to the overview. So that thing right there where it says status, that is kind of what it looks like on the app as well. Like it'll have that exact picture there. And the cool thing on the app is if you're away from home, or even if you are home, and you sense or you hear or read or watch that a storm is on the way, there's a selection called emergency mode on our app. And when you click that, it raises this backup buffer that I was talking about earlier up to 100%. And so when it does that, it will start charging from whatever source is available. And so you can get your home, you know, ready for this imminent grid outage. It's so cool. It was a highly requested feature, and they put it in there not too long ago. So yeah, cool.
One more thing, Greg. So it looks like you're in time of use for operating mode. However, you're still, Brian, can we look at yesterday's analysis one more time? Can we see when you're discharging the battery and then when you stop? Because I imagine you're discharging it from 4 to 9 or whatever your window is. When does the battery stop and then the grid come back? Or that being said, is it advantageous? Yeah, that's all. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. We used to have this thing that would turn red when you were discharging, but I don't know, for some reason in this new setup, I guess that was too many colors. So the Germans took that away. So you really have to look at state of charge. Now mine is a little bit different because, and you can set these windows whatever you want. So I have mine set to discharge from midnight until like 2 a.m. So that's why you keep seeing the state of charge go down, right? So I want to use every bit of my battery, not just, you know, the part between 5 and 9, right? And that's totally customizable. And I recommend that people play around with it, right? Like if you have your thing set up for time of use and you only discharge 5 kilowatt hours, then open the window up a little bit on the back end and go a little bit more into the evening, right? And use more of that battery. Like that's the only way that you can really optimize your solar is with storage. And you just take advantage of it. Like I don't understand the people who only keep their battery systems in backup mode, like all the time. That's the most boring mode out there, in my opinion. But, you know, maybe, I don't know, they're just reluctant to do that because they're scared of grid outages or whatever. But man, you're not getting as much bang for your buck as if you have it in self-consumption or time of use mode.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And then we're getting close to hitting 11 a.m. The one other question, people were very excited about what you were saying on load selection and surge understanding. Is that something that you elaborate on, or is that something, Brian answered this pretty well, but I want you to just talk about it a little bit. The surge load information in the design tool.
Yes, so there's a lot of surge that people don't account for, right? And we have a 35 amp surge rating for 100 milliseconds. You'll just multiply that by 240 and that will give the kilowatt requirement. And people don't account for that, right? Like refrigerators and freezers, even my upright over there, and I measured it, it's about 12 amps when it pulls. My oh, you can't see it, but I've got my air compressor, you know, right here. You see that? Yeah, it's a 5.5 gallon air compressor. I don't know, you know, if you want to use that kind of load when the grid is out, but I can. Matter of fact, this system has no trouble starting that thing. Now, there aren't too many single ESS units that have enough oomph to start something like an air conditioner, right? A 3-ton air conditioner averages, anywhere between 65 and 80 amps of startup, right? So one unit, one of anything, probably won't start it. You're going to have to double up or get a soft start kit, right? So you add a soft start element in there. It's about $250. So it is an adder, but it absorbs some of the surge from these larger loads so that you don't have to pull so much off of these. But it is something that we account for in our tool, but you have to find it, right? And that's the hardest part. Like, well, I don't know how much a 3-ton air conditioner pulls, right? Like you said, 65 to 80, which one is it? And what they do is they get a clamp meter and they go out there and try to measure it. And they're like, well, this thing is only pulling like 30 amps. Well, a clamp meter is not fast enough to get that spike. You need an oscilloscope. And most people, they don't have that kind of specialized equipment with them, most installers. So what you have to do is pull off covers and look at the compressor ratings. So my 3-ton air conditioner, it's old, like it's 14, 15 years old. It has a locked rotor amp rating, an LRA, of 68, 70 amps, something like that, like way over this. So just one more thing you have to think about, but it's something that I do cover in my training, and I go into exhaustive detail on this in my book, because I've seen those large loads pull the whole system down. Well pump, pool pump, pumps, motors, all those kinds of things always have a larger draw than their running current. And you have to account for that.
Thank you, Greg.
What else?
We've
I
been
think everything has been answered so far. If anybody wants to chime in something for the last couple of minutes, go for it.
Lynn Wolford has her hand up. Has she already asked her question?
I answered Lynn's question in the chat.
Okay.
It was about stacking, and right at this time, it's a single unit per subpanel.
Correct. So you cannot stack these for now. So one unit feeds one backup panel.
And you could have multiple sub panels in a home, right, Greg?
Oh yeah. Yep.
We just got a question come in. Are the CTs revenue grade?
You wish. No revenue grade. That adds considerable cost. So typically you'll need a third-party system for that, right? So our CTs are just there to tell us what's going on. That's it.
And then we had Lance ask if the sonnenCore can be tied into a generator or not.
No, this one cannot. This one cannot. So I know, and I went on that big spiel about having a generator. And that is one of the things that this particular iteration does not support right now. It's still possible to have a generator with this thing, but then you got to, get into transfer switches and things like that. Doable, like people have already done it, but a generator will not directly connect to this. All right. Sorry, just still kind of cold. Oh, there goes my lights again. Oh, that kind of looked cool.
Greg, we had a question come in from Newt Loken. Is there a load simulator that a family could play, think video game, that would be a helpful sales tool to assuage any concerns and eventually train customers at the front end? Load shaving can be fun.
Oh my gosh, dude, that is an incredible idea. And I think you're onto something, because these spreadsheets, they're intimidating, man. They just, I mean, even the nice looking ones that are online, it's still a lot to look at. You're like, dude, what is all this crap and what does this mean? And you have to explain a lot, like, oh yeah, this is total kilowatt hours and we actually have something like that in our online training. Like, we show when you move this arrow, right, it goes doo, 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 and you're adding, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 watts, and you see what happens to the batteries. But it's a static thing, and you actually have to move the arrow. I could totally see something like that being real useful. I don't know of anything like that, but I'm sure there's got to be something like that. If not, just grab some 14-year-old kid and have them write an app for it real quick. But yeah, no, that's a great idea. And that will really pound home what the behavior of your load profile and your consumption habits will have on these systems. Like, man, that's an awesome idea.
That was a great question. Well, this was fun. Thank you, Greg, for letting us into your garage. We do appreciate it. And thank you, Brian, for facilitating those questions. And thank you, everybody, for participating. We're really looking forward to sonnenCore hitting our warehouses. As mentioned, if you want to check it out, we got snarkysolarguy.com, right, Greg? That's you? Go check it out.
That is me.
And in the meantime, while we're waiting to hit our warehouses, be sure to check out Sonnen's University training portal. They have all your resources there to get up to speed on EcoLinks, and sonnenCore. So feel free to check that out. We'll pass it to you in an email so you don't miss it. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. This is awesome. Appreciate it. Have a good one.